Relying on pure willpower is one of the worst mistakes you can make when trying to beat bad habits. But there's some mistakes which are even worse, and I bet you do at least one of them. Hi, I'm Nick. I'm a psychotherapist and life coach with over a decade of lived experience in addiction recovery. Here are 7 major mistakes to avoid, which could be silently sabotaging your progress. Mistake number 1. If you were trying to recover from crack addiction, would you keep your crack dealer's phone number on speed dial? Would you live on their couch? Hopefully, you've answered no, right? Yet, people do the equivalent all the time. I've even done it myself. When I was trying to stop comfort eating, I'd still keep giant tubs of ice cream and peanut butter in my flat, naively thinking I'd eat them in moderation. Spoiler alert, I didn't. If you're quitting smoking but still hanging out in the smokers areas on nights out, you're keeping the crack dealer on speed dial. If you're quitting junk food but still have Uber Eats or Deliveroo on your phone, same thing. In the early days, especially, you have to create some distance between you and the bad habit. Make relapse as inconvenient as possible. Delete the number. Uninstall the app, move the alcohol out of the house, hang out with non-smokers and non-drinkers until you've got some recovery time under your belt. So the first mistake is keeping temptation within reach, or as I like to call it, keeping the crack dealer on speed dial. But even if you remove all possible temptations, this next mistake can cause so many people to trip up. Mistake number 2. I've seen this mistake so many times, and that is the mistake of relying on willpower. Relying on willpower is a little bit like trying to swim the Atlantic Ocean with no preparation, no training, no boat, and no wetsuit. Sure, you might make it a little way, but you're probably going to drown without support. But if you had some training and support, totally doable. The deeper issue here is self-regulation, the ability to calm yourself down without using your bad habit. Many people use the habit itself to regulate emotions. Now, here's one powerful tool I want you to use instead of willpower: co-regulation. In other words, this is a fancy way of saying to have people you can call day or night, someone who can help you to talk things through, whether you need to just vent, to cry, to rage, someone who won't judge you and who will just help you by listening. Most people I know who have successful long-term recovery can vouch for the power of a support network. The truth is that we are social beings, and sometimes we need to borrow someone else's brain, especially when we're emotional. As the psychologist Joe Griffin says, sanity is a group activity. When we're emotional, in a word, we become more stupid. Your emotional brain hijacks your rational brain, leading to decisions like downing 6 pints, chain vaping, or inhaling a large pizza. But if someone helps you to calm down, then you can begin to use your rational brain again and make better decisions. So, Google recovery groups, build a support network, consider hiring a therapist, and don't just rely on being strong. But even with support, you'll fail if you make this next mistake. Mistake number 3. Your body affects your decisions more than you think. If you're hungry or tired, you're going to be crankier, more impulsive, and more stressed. And stress makes you crave the quick fix of your bad habit. Now, sleep deprivation is brutal. It messes with appetite hormones, makes you crave sugar and bad carbs for instant energy. Now, even moderate to mild sleep deprivation can affect your logic just as much as moderate consumption of alcohol. So yes, quite literally, when we don't sleep enough, this can have the same effect on our logical thinking abilities as having a few pints. So if you want to avoid your bad habit, you're going to need to start taking sleep much more seriously, because when you're tired, you're going to be more moody. You're going to make bad decisions. When I'm really tired, believe me, my willpower starts to go out the window very quickly. I will start craving the worst possible foods for my diet. So pay attention to your physical state. Likewise, you also need to avoid getting too hungry. When we're hungry, this can also make us more irritable. It can make us hangry. In fact, if you go shopping when you're hungry, you may well find that you end up buying worse foods because, again, you're going to be making those poorer decisions in that hungry state. So the mistake here is ignoring your physiological state. What's going on in your body physically can have a psychological effect on you. Now, if you do slip up, and a lot of people do, then there's a mistake you can make which is worse than the relapse itself. Mistake number 4. Relapse rates for some habits are as high as 50 to 70%. Now, relapse is not the end of the world, but beating yourself up makes things so much worse. Now, I get it. It's frustrating, especially when you had a good streak going. But instead of shame spiraling, stop and ask yourself, what was I feeling? What happened just before I relapsed? Shame and guilt add fuel to the fire. They push you to numb the pain, often by returning to the very habit that you're trying to quit. So from now on, I want you to see every relapse as data. If you analyze that data, instead of punishing yourself, your recovery is going to be stronger next time. But reflection alone isn't enough. Now, this next mistake I've seen a number of my clients making, and maybe you're also making it too. Mistake number 5. Even if alcohol isn't your main vice, it can still cause a big issue and be a major source of indirect relapse for a lot of people. Why? Because it shuts down your inhibitions. You may have the best intentions sober, but 2 or 3 drinks in, the rational part of your brain goes offline. Suddenly, smoking, binging, or gaming for 6 hours feels like a fantastic idea. If you're serious about quitting your bad habit, you want to give up alcohol for at least the first year. Give your brain time to reset without pouring fuel on the fire. The way to think about it is, when you're sober, it's a bit like bowling with the safety bumpers up, right? And then as soon as you have that first drink, what happens is those safety barriers begin to come down. Very likely the ball, or you, might end up in the gutter. So your best bet is just to avoid alcohol for now, until you've got at least a year of recovery under your belt. Now, I had one client who really wanted to recover from cocaine abuse. When he was sober, it was absolutely fine. The problem is, he would have a few drinks with his friend, and then one of them would always come up with the idea, hey, should we also do some coke? But he would never make that suggestion when he was sober. And I said to him, look, if you want to give up the coke, you're also going to need to give up the alcohol, because the alcohol is the thing that's lowering your inhibitions. Likewise, the same thing may be happening for you. But even if you avoid alcohol, there's one mistake which trips up even seasoned veterans in recovery. Mistake number 6. This one gets people even after years and years of success in recovery. And this is when you start thinking, I don't need help. I don't need to be vigilant anymore. I've got this. It's a piece of cake. That's when trouble hits. The moment you stop respecting the power of your old bad habit is the moment that you're destined for a relapse. This is because you start skipping the support and structure that made you successful in the first place in your recovery journey, and suddenly you're back where you first started. Humility isn't a weakness. It's admitting that you're human. It's remembering that recovery is an ongoing process that requires continued vigilance and awareness. Even after years and years of recovery, I still have to keep my guard up. I have to keep using my support network and my support resources if I am to stay sober from my bad habits and addictions. I've seen far too many people relapse because they thought they were safe. And now finally, here's the critical mistake that will bring so many people's recovery progress to a halt. Mistake number 7. We as human beings have many emotional needs, such as a sense of community, a sense of competency, security, and so forth. To illustrate this, let me tell you a true story. During the Vietnam War, a whopping 34% of deployed American soldiers were using heroin. However, 88% of heroin-using soldiers completely stopped using heroin once they were back in the safe territory of the United States. Now, it could be that being in a dangerous environment, such as a war zone, affected the American soldiers' sense of physical security, which is a human need, which may have driven them to start using heroin. Likewise, one reason you may be using this bad habit is because you may have one or more unmet emotional needs in your life. So mistake number 7 is neglecting your emotional needs. Now, I've created a free emotional needs audit, which you can find in the comments and the description below, which will help you to identify whether or not there's any missing emotional needs from your life. So let's briefly recap the critical mistakes that people make when trying to quit bad habits. 1. Keeping the crack dealer on speed dial. 2. Relying on willpower alone. 3. Ignoring your physical state. 4. Beating yourself up if you relapse. 5. Drinking alcohol. 6. Losing your humility. 7. Neglecting your emotional needs. Avoid these mistakes and you'll massively boost your chances of finally kicking that bad habit for good. We all learn different lessons on this journey. If you could give just one piece of advice to someone quitting a bad habit, what would it be? Comment below. I'd love to hear your advice. Did you know that procrastination can be a bad habit in itself? And the thing is, so many people get this one thing wrong about procrastination, including the experts. Now, if you're interested in that, then you need to watch my next video here, where I'll talk about that in a lot more detail. And remember, if you suffer from addictions, get professional support.